Welcome back to the channel. I want to talk to you guys about Hedron specifically and let you know that I have bought a little bit on the open market. And I don't know that I recommend doing that, but I'm going to talk through some of my really basic thoughts on why I did that, and I might end up buying more. We will see over time. But why did I do that? So first, let's just look really quick at the Icosa project itself. This is app.icosa.pro. We've been spending a lot of time looking at this. By the way, we did see an increase in the Icosa staking pool. We saw an increase again in the Hedron given that shows up in this pool. The returns were higher than the day before, and yesterday's returns were higher than the day before. I didn't necessarily expect that. I didn't know it was going to happen, but I thought maybe we would see a slow decrease over time in the HSI buyback being used. And we've actually seen it lowered, and then it increased again. And that's really interesting. And I think it's really healthy for the project for so many reasons. But basically, the Hedron shows up in this pool here when wrapped hex is given to this HSI buyback here. People put their HSIs in here in order to get Icosa. And so anyway, it's increased for 2 days in a row. Even it increased one day, and then it increased even more the yesterday. So that's great. That's cool. But let's look here at the Hedron project. So this is Hedron.pro, and you can get to this by going to browse liquidations and then active liquidations. This is where all of those HSIs that were placed in the HSI buyback that were given to the contract, that's where they're going to show up in 90 days. And that begins when these are going to start showing up here. When the HSI specific to what were given to this project, those are going to show up here on Sunday, November 13th. And there's going to be, I believe, on that day, around, I think, over 2,000 in this pool. And I've just been thinking and strategizing for this time. I just think it's going to be a relatively meaningful time for Hedron and Icosa. So some simple thoughts that I've had on the Hedron project are, I see a number of things potentially happening when people buy the HSIs that are going to show up here. One thought is either the Hedron price versus Hex is higher than it is now or lower. And let's just talk about those two scenarios. So if Hedron is higher, then it's going to take less Hedron to purchase these Hex stakes for the Hex that's inside of them than it would otherwise take. And if the Hedron value is higher than the dollar value of this stake, it's going to take less of that Hedron to buy these. And the only way to buy these stakes that are here is with Hedron. So that's great. If the price rises, then you have the potential to buy more of these. I'm not sure how heavy I'm going to go, but that's a good potential. And just the fact that the price is rising, your Hedron value is up, that's a good thing. But what happens if the Hedron price lowers? So if the Hedron price lowers, if the Hedron price goes down, then it's going to take more of the Hedron to buy these HSIs that are showing up in here, this wrapped hex. And if it takes more of them, assuming they're going to pay the dollar value they're worth, if it takes more of them, then the total Hedron supply is going to go down even more. The total Hedron supply is roughly, right now, it's, I think, a little over 94 trillion or something like that. And the total Hedron supply is going to go down. So that means that if you held Hedron through this, you're going to own a larger portion of supply. And that's a good thing too. So I see it potentially a win-win, and having Hedron may not be a bad idea. And Another thought I had thinking about these HSIs is there's a chance they're undervalued, but I think how to value these HSIs is going to be a little bit interesting because these are wrapped hex stakes. And a lot of people are looking at these. I think it's a very straightforward way to look at it. They're looking at the Hedron price versus the hex price. And so if there was, let's say, 100 hex in here, they're just doing calculations that this, if I was to buy hex on the market, if I was to buy 100 hex on the market, it would take this much Hedron. But realize that if people are bidding on these just looking at the hex inside of them, comparing it to how much 100 hex would be on Uniswap, for example, they're missing something because these hex stakes are already in progress, and that means that they already have a share rate from the past. And that means that if you bought 100 hex on the market and staked it today, this hex stake with 100 hex in it is actually worth more, because when the hex stake ends, you're going to have a larger portion of the T shares, and a larger portion of the hex inflation is going to be going to this stake versus the one that was just created that you bought off the market. Also, something to think about if you go to bid for these, or just about this whole process, there's of course Hedron attached to these. Also, there will be Hedron attached to a new hex stake today. Also, the difference is that some of these have a Hedron bonus, and if some of these are going to have a potentially 10x return in Hedron, because that's just what some of the bonuses were when the project began. And if people gave up their 10x bonus to this, and I gave up 9x bonus, I haven't looked to see what the bonuses are yet for this pool, how many of them have bonuses, but I gave up 3 HSIs that had a 9x bonus on them. And so they're going to give you 9 times the Hedron for the life of that stake, and you can't do that. That bonus time is over. And so there's a possibility that these HSIs actually go for more than their per hex value, because really they should. And so we may have an even bigger impact on supply if you calculated those numbers in. We will see. It's possible that people are not valuing these, correlating these HSIs with the current Hedron price on the market, and they sell for less. Like it's people don't have to spend that much for them. But like I said, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because for one, you can anyway. I don't know if that's going to happen. It'll be really interesting to see. Because to me, it's like if this is going at a, let's just say 10% discount, which I think is pretty good, I could go on the market, buy Hedron, come in here, spend it for a 10% discount on hex. And some thoughts on that we're thinking about are, that would be the Hedron versus hex price at that time. It's not necessarily they're going to be correlated forever. So just because at that time, you could buy Hedron at this amount and get hex, that doesn't mean hex is going to just dip in price the next day or something like that. So you gotta continue to think of the big picture in the long run. But at the time, that day, at that time, if they're selling at a discount, you're getting a discount at that time. Anyway, really simple thoughts, hopefully, and just what I'm thinking through concerning this Icosa and Hedron project. And I bought a little bit of Hedron, prepared to buy more. We'll see what happens. I'll let you guys know if I do. I plan to let you know if I do. So anyway, thanks for watching. Here's some more thoughts for you. Talk to you in the next one.